I do hear, I'm not deaf, and I need to say it because you can't tell whether the person is deaf or not only by their appearance. So you might ask me, why me, a hearing person, is standing here talking about deaf issues? Well, I've been studying and promoting sign languages for 1.5 years already, and I've noticed several disturbing issues. In this country, we still call deaf and dumb. We still deny their right to get a good education and a good job, and we still look down upon their language. So here I stand to explain 3 things. Why deafness is about all of us, why sign language is so important, and how can a hearing person benefit from sign language. It might seem that deafness is not about me, about you, about any of us. And I also used to separate the world where the deaf and hard of hearing people live from the world of the hearers, as the deaf affectionately call those who hear. But these worlds are not separate, they're close and intertwined. For example, only 10% of deaf children are born into deaf families, the lucky ones. 90% of them are born into families who are not ready for it and who regard deafness as a defect to be cured. And we all can be future parents of those 90%, so we have to be ready. And not ready to get the child back to normal, because many hearing parents stick to installing a hearing prosthetic device into their children's head, thinking that it will make him hearing again. But surprise, it doesn't. It's called cochlear implantation, and cochlear implantation does not make a deaf person hearing. It's not a turn switch, it is much more complicated. And hurrying to develop speech, one can be late in developing brain as a whole. Now DeMarco, a deaf actor, model, and activist, speaks a lot on this problem. And his message is, start signing to your deaf child as soon as possible. It will develop his brain and his abilities more than any other corrective device. But you may say, I already have children and they hear, or I will never have children. What then? Well, there is one thing that is about all of us. We get old. And scientists say that there is 25% possibility that me and you will lose our hearing partially or completely by the age of 70, and 50% possibility that it will happen by the age of 75. So look around, really, look around, look at the people around you. It means that every 4th of us will experience this in their old years. It can be you, it can be me. My grandmother has gone almost completely deaf, but she refuses to learn and communicate in sign language. So when I want to say something to her, I have to shout it directly into her ear, and she still doesn't get me most of the time. And I would prefer to communicate with her in signs than be miscommunicating like that. So I believe that any of these 2 things are quite a reason to start learning sign language in advance. Why sign language is important? Well, sign language is a natural way of communicating for the deaf. It is the core of deaf culture. And I'm saying sign language, but I mean like the sign language, the idea of sign language, because there are many. Probably in each and every country there is one. And a most amazing example, usually for the hearing people, is that there is no English sign language. There is American, there is British, there is Australian, there is a sign language of New Zealand, but no English one. And it turns out that American is not really connected to British, Australian, and New Zealand. It is more closely connected with French and Russian sign languages. And I would like to demonstrate it to you using the signs for deaf and hearing. So these are the signs for the word deaf. Look closely in American Sign Language. So it's deaf. In Russian Sign Language. And in British Sign Language. Now, for the word hearing. And I have to note that there are two ways of saying hearing, but I chose the one that demonstrates the idea the best. So again, hearing in American Sign Language, in Russian Sign Language, and in British Sign Language. So as you can see, the words, the signs for deaf and hearing are completely opposite in American and British Sign Languages. There is another amazing example when scientists saw a new sign language be born in Nicaragua. In Nicaragua, there were no schools for the deaf, so all the deaf people lived with their families and used what we call home signs to communicate. Then a first school was established, so people of different ages came there. And they created a kind of a lingua franca to talk with each other. It was not a language yet. But then a first enrollment happened, so new children came to school, and suddenly they, of course, acquired that lingua franca and suddenly got creative with that. And scientists and teachers saw them add grammatical patterns to that pre-language and structure the morphological and phonological systems. So a new, fully developed, real language was born. But where do deaf people in Russia learn sign language? What do you think? A common hearing answer is at school, like we are taught Russian or English, they are taught sign language. But actually they are not. Most teachers in Russian schools for the deaf do not know sign language. And in many schools, it's banned from usage. So the goal of modern Russian education for the deaf is to teach them how to read, speak, and write in Russian. I mean, not to make them good people, not to help them choose the life they want to live and succeed in it. No, to read, write, and speak correctly. Imagine yourself at a school when all the teaching happens below or above your frequency level, your hearing frequency level, so you have to always be tense to get what the teacher is saying and respond to him in the same frequency without any chance of natural feedback. Is it the school you will get as many knowledge as possible from? Is it the school you will have sweet memories of? Is it the school you would like your child to go to? I would say it again. Sign language is important because it's a natural way of communicating and expressing oneself for the deaf people. It is the core of the deaf culture. And in addition to that, sign language, studying sign language, can help us understand more about the language itself, how it was invented, and how it works in our brain. So I hope that you will learn the sign language and the value of it for the deaf community and for the world. And of course, we can learn sign language to help deaf children grow up fully developed and happy. And we can learn sign language so that we could communicate when we're up in years. But how can a hearing person benefit from sign language here and now? What is the most practical use of it? Well, I will give you several examples, but I would like to start with a kind of a sad one. Sometimes people get diseases that affect their ability to speak. One can become just too weak to talk. And it once happened to me and to my other grandmother. And while I could just sign to my partner what is happening to me, my grandmother couldn't. And we had quite a hard time treating her because it was so easy to hurt her with her own movement, and we couldn't predict what movement would be wrong. And she couldn't tell us because she neither knew sign language nor could she utter a word. Now, for more positive examples. You can sign in places filled with loud music or other noises. For example, recently me and my girlfriend went to a wedding party, and while all the other guests had to force their vocal cords to talk, we just signed to each other. It was very comfortable. You can sign through distances. For example, in a line at a fast food restaurant, specifying whether your friend sitting at the table needs a barbecue or a chili sauce without again shouting to him. And, well, you can talk with your mouth full because, surprise, you don't need your mouth that much to communicate in sign language. And Deaf Bloggers has a lot of amazing videos about this matter. And you can sign so that no one around you would understand what you are talking about, and even that you are talking if you are skilled enough. And learning sign language, like learning any other language, develops brain. It grows in size and new neuron connections are formed. But there is no other 3D language but sign one. Just watch this interpretation of the Transformers movie in American Sign Language. So I hope that I have given you enough incentives to start learning sign language. And now, well, I will teach you a simple phrase that sounds the same in American and Russian sign languages. Well, you will need to stand up. Don't be shy. Don't be sleepy after the coffee break. So stand up. First, you will need your right hand. So take it and stroke it gently against your chest, like this. Like, what a delicious coffee that was. A damn good coffee. So, this is the sign for nice. Nice. Then, you will need your both hands with your index fingers up, palms facing each other, and make a movement like two people are going into each other's direction and meeting, like this. Yes, like this. So this is a sign for meet. And the last sign is you. You. So once again, it is nice to meet you. Tell this to the person standing to the right or to the left of you. Say that it is so nice for you to meet them. Don't be shy. Practice. So, you may sit down. So, I hope, my great hope is that you will start learning the sign language of your country today or maybe tomorrow. So let's make a big change for the deaf community and for the world together. It was very nice to meet you. Thank you.
Woo!